Okay. I think we're ready. This is weird. We're gonna light my candle. I mean, post edit Jessie, do something. Oh, for the love of God. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Jessie, better known as Fable Pagan, and I am a sea witch. So I promised you guys that my return to YouTube would be a Q&A all about my witchcraft and my path. So what is sea witchcraft? Sea witchcraft is a very niche term that falls under the umbrella of water witchcraft. Now that also falls under the umbrella of elemental witchcraft, and that falls under the umbrella of witchcraft, which falls under the umbrella of paganism, which falls under the umbrella of spirituality. You could go on and on and on, but sea witchcraft is a specific niche within a broader spectrum of witchcraft, and what it basically means is the majority of the focus of my craft is centered around the ocean, oceanic spirits, and things of the like. That also leads me to a really good point. Yes, I consider myself a sea witch. However, I also consider myself an elemental witch because, again, I fall under that umbrella. So just because you are a sea witch does not mean you don't use the other elements in your practice. All of the elements interact with each other in different ways. If you're standing on the shoreline, you can feel the wind, you can feel the sun, you can feel the earth in the form of sand underneath your feet. And fun fact, the beach is one of the many places in our world where all four elements are interacting with each other. So it's really important to recognize that while the ocean may be the thing that is spread out before you, the other elements are working in tandem. Now, you have seen popular references to sea witches. We have, of course, Ursula/Vanessa from The Little Mermaid being one of the most popular in cultural media today. You can practice sea witchcraft if you do not live near the ocean. I actually don't live near an actual ocean. At the moment, I live near harbors, bays, sounds, and yes, there is a difference. I have a whole magical breakdown of the types of bodies of water that I could do a separate video on, but it is also available right now on my Sea Witchery Patreon, which I will link in my bio down below. If you'd like to know a little bit more about my spell work and my day-to-day kind of things as a sea witch, I will leave those all down below. So I have the video up on my phone here of the questions that I kind of posed to you guys to get questions back. What tools do you need to start? I have a metaphor for this one. Bear with me. I like to think of any tools that you can use in your magical practice, like a hammer when building a birdhouse. The birdhouse that you are making, in this case, is the spell that you are creating. Now, depending on the type of spell, that depends on the type of wood or materials that you are using to make the birdhouse. The nail that you use to hold the boards of the birdhouse in place is your magical energy, and the hammer would be the tools. For example, if you're using styrofoam, you can push the nail in yourself. You don't need a hammer to push the nail into the pieces of styrofoam to hold them together. And the styrofoam, in this case, might be, in my personal experience, creating like an energy shield or an energy bubble. I find those probably the easiest spells to cast without tools. However, if you are crafting a more complicated spell, if you have a harder type of wood to build this birdhouse with, then you would probably want something to aid you into hammering the pieces of wood together with the nails, like a hammer. I think this metaphor went completely off the rails. Essentially, the hammer would be your tools. So things like protective necklaces and jewelry, oils. To my original point, there is no specific set of tools that you actually need when it comes to sea witchcraft that are any different from tools that you would use regularly in the craft. And the more that you dive into this practice, the more you will find what substitutes for certain things that you like best. For example, I don't normally use traditional candle carvers anymore. Instead, I would use things like this. So we have an auger shell, I believe it is pronounced. Do not come out with the pronunciations. I can't. Actually, the tip broke in one of the last candle spells I was doing. Oh, the irony. But I have a million of these, like big and small. It's just this one is the one that feels most like a pencil, and a unicorn horn. Is this the thumbnail? Is this gonna be the thumbnail? Cool. And if I'm doing more protective works, I will also use something like this, which is the barb of a horseshoe crab. I'm going to be making a completely separate video on mermaids and oceanic spirits as a whole, because this video would be 2 hours long. Like, it would be 2 hours long. It's insane how much there is to learn about this topic. The basics of what I will say here, and I'm going to be sounding like a broken record many, many times throughout these videos, so please forgive me on that. I will always tell you to go back to starting with research. When connecting with beings on the astral realm, such as mermaids, sirens, krakens, cicalias, things along those lines, it really is no different from normal deity work. You take that one step further and then show your dedication by taking the time to research, to check sources, to see if this partnership would be right in your practice. I had someone on my Patreon actually ask me if they could work with the energy of mermaids without delineating a specific culture. I work specifically with mermaids that hail from where my ancestors lived, which is mostly the Mediterranean. Most of my ancestors were Italian from the coastal towns of Sicily, Palermo, and also a little bit further off of the Amalfi coast, and upwards into Naples. So I have a very heavy water influence in those regions on both of my, on both sides of my family. So it makes more sense, and it was easier for me to connect to mermaids in that regard. But when I first started working with them and started reaching out, I was reaching out to their collective energy as a whole and their representations, which again would be beauty, any actually sort of glamour magic, fame and fortune, attracting things. I will go over this in a lot of different videos. I will also be doing a mermaids versus sirens video and like what the key differences are. I also already have this breakdown on my Patreon. If you would like to go check that out, it is available. I posed the question about practicing landlocked as well. I'm also going to save that for another video because I think that it is important to get into the nitty-grittiness of different types of people who are landlocked, whether you are 5 minutes from the coast or 5 hours from the coast, and to talk about it that way. So I will save that for another video. If you have any specific questions about either being landlocked or from my any questions about mermaids or working with them, please leave them in the comment section down below and I will consider them to answer in my next videos. Oh, this is a good one. What is the meaning and function of uses for pearls and mother of pearl? So pearls actually are very protective, and a lot of people don't automatically associate pearls with protection, but it comes down to what the pearl's main purpose is in an oyster. This is where the nerd side of me is going to come out. Witchcraft has a lot of mundane aspects that people overlook, but when it comes to the ocean and when it comes to sea witchcraft, it is even more apparent. Like the magical uses of things often come down to sometimes the very nature of how the thing was created. So to explain the protective nature of pearls, you have to realize how a pearl is formed. And what usually happens is an oyster, which is a living organism that is closed up in a shell, sometimes very, very tiny particles of sand can slip in past the cracks of the shell. And when that happens, the oyster recognizes the sand as almost like a foreign body, and, well, it is a foreign body, and begins to coat it in this secretion, which becomes a pearl. And so that is also why you can sometimes find more than one pearl inside of a single oyster. It is a natural defense mechanism, and that layer, that secretion, protects the oyster. So that is why pearls can be associated with protection and absorbing negative energy. It is really, really good to wear pearls if you want to absorb negativity. They are also used a lot in beauty. Pearls also enhance your natural intuition. They're really, really good for activating the third eye. They're also used for to represent like innocence and new beginnings. Really good for deceptive glamour magic if you wanted to put on a innocent kind of aura, like that very fawny Marilyn Monroe, like big eyes, doe in the headlights kind of thing. Really, really good for that, because it just, you know, it makes everything look more delicate. How to connect to and work with the water element. Enchant your drinks. If you want to start connecting with the element of water, think about where it is prevalent in your day-to-day life, because that's going to be the easiest for you to begin to incorporate. For example, I've been unironically sipping out of this tumbler. This is an enchanted glass, one of many that I have around my home, and that actually just helps me connect more to the water that I'm drinking as a whole, as opposed to just, you know, getting up and having a glass of water. There's more intention behind it. I think the best thing to do if you're trying to connect to the element of water is just to put more intention behind the water that you already use in your day-to-day life, the showers that you take, how you take care of your hair, the water inside of your body, making sure that you stay hydrated, taking time to also appreciate the water that is outside of your body, that occurs in natural phenomena like rain and as I can see outside my window right now, snow. How can you deeply connect with ocean spirits / mermaids to the point where you can see them and hear them? Any recommendations for this? Tread lightly with this one. Do you really want to? I'm totally kidding. I'm totally kidding. Someone actually answered this question, and they said, I think she astral projects to swim with them, and they send her lots of dreams. Yes, a lot of astral projection, what I mostly call pathworking, and again, I will explain that in a separate video. I have found that mermaids are the easiest to connect to in my dreams. I don't necessarily see them or hear them outside of working with them in my dreams. It was actually through their guidance that I decided to start making YouTube videos again, and it just feels so good. It sparked that childlike joy and wonder that I had when I was 10, 11 years old. I feel a strong pull to Undines. How should I connect with them? Undines. So Undines are the water elementals. Now, if you are unfamiliar with elementals, I'm actually writing a book about them right now. There is one for each element: the gnomes for the element of earth, the sylphs for the element of air, the salamanders for the element of fire, and the undines for the element of water. If you want a good cultural example, actually, it wasn't exactly like, they took some creative licenses, of course, but in Frozen 2, why do I always go back to Disney movies? It makes sense. A lot of Disney movies were obviously adapted from, you know, the Brothers Grimm, and the Brothers Grimm they collected all of these stories from different cultural regions around the world. So it does make sense why Disney would get some things right. But Elsa actually encounters all of the elementals in Frozen 2 in different degrees. So obviously the salamander, I forgot his name, he was so cute. That is the fire spirit. Gale, the wind spirit, would actually be sylphs. They resemble more, from my understanding, they are closer resembled to like the fae than just an actual gust of wind, but they can be worked with in the same way. Same with undines. They are water elementals. And actually, I have a book recommendation for you. I really want to do a lot of book reviews, but I want to preface each one by saying that my work with water and my work as a sea witch is highly intuitive. So I do research a lot when it comes to mermaids, cicalias, the spirits that I work with, the most prevalent, krakens, things like that. But I take almost everything with a grain of salt, and I encourage you guys to do the same. So what I would recommend for a jumping point that specifically focuses on Undines and not mermaids would be this book. And that is Undines, Lessons from the Realm of the Water Spirits by William R. Mistel. Now, this is a harder book to get your hands on. I don't think I want to remember how much I paid for this book. But it is it's a very thick one. This is also from a personal, this was written from a personal standpoint. It's not so much fact-driven. It's basically a collection of essays, and this person is describing their own personal experience. And I wouldn't mark actually any book on witchcraft, mermaids, anything along those lines as like you need to take everyone's exact word for it. I'm never going to tell you that, but this one is definitely more personal rather than fact-driven, I would say. And actually at the end though, there's a lovely collection of poetry that he wrote to the Undines, and specifically the ones that he's worked with the most and has seen and visualized. It's a really interesting book. I highly recommend it if you want a personalized experience from someone who has actually worked with these spirits on a very intimate level for a very long time. So that's the book. That's my book recommendation for you. How can using the ocean spirits help in glamour magic? So working with ocean spirits is, again, very similar to working with deities. They are not a tool. They are definitely, it's a partnership that there is a give and take for. So if you are considering using any spirits in addition to your normal glamour magic, I would definitely make sure that you have your research done. For the most part, I don't invoke my mermaids for things unless I know I have some sort of offering to give back to them. And most of the time they will accept certain things about myself that I am dedicating to them. For example, I am currently dedicating a healthy routine to them of my hair, skin, and nails, trying to go for that inner glow, trying to go for that shine. So that's kind of what I use a lot of the times as my dedication to them to help me achieve those things. It is a give and take because they really do appreciate a good self-care moment. That being said, if you are using them, I don't like that word, if you're inviting them or asking them to help you with something, then I would highly suggest that you have an offering ready. And say it with me, I would research to figure out what the best offering would be for that. Like I said, mermaids, you can work with their energy as a whole, and there are certain things that each mermaid appreciates. That would be in the form of whether you offer them fresh seawater or you offer them, really pretty shells or some kind of hair accessory or things along those lines they might appreciate. But I think it gets easier to work with them on specific spell work once you kind of know the culture that you want to draw on them for, because not all mermaids are alike in all cultures. In my culture specifically, you get probably what you would envision as the quintessential mermaid, which isn't really saying much, but because the personalities can still be very different from spirit to spirit depending on who you speak to. But then if you were to think about the Celtic Mero or the Russian Rusalka, they are very different forms of merfolk than mermaids, Serena, that you would see in my practice. So I think it really just depends on knowing who you're working with and going accordingly. But if you are going to invite them into your space for spell work, I would make sure that you have an offering handy. That was all of the questions. I don't know what this video is going to turn into. However, it was really cool getting back in front of the camera again. Please leave any questions about landlocked witchcraft if you have any, or any more specifics about working with mermaids, whether it be in my practice or if you're just curious about certain things. I am going to be doing some book reviews as well. I'm excited to get into those. It is really snowing. That's so pretty. What? Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you like this video, feel free to like this video, subscribe to hear more, and I will see you soon. Get it? Like see, like ocean. Okay, you get it.